Tonight, the teen driver who struck and killed 2 children in Vaughan is sentenced.
My children lost their lives because of a few moments of selfish stupidity.
And we are left with broken pieces to live with.
Reaction from family after the 17-year-old is sentenced to a year in open custody in the deaths of the 2 children who were killed while playing in their driveway. Plus,
the top 3 priorities in Toronto's fight against COVID-19 are vaccination, vaccination, and vaccination.
With COVID-19 cases on the rise again, the city launches a campaign to encourage people to get their 3rd shot. And
there should also be an increase in accessibility of responsible gambling tools.
Ontario's online gaming market officially launches, but some addiction experts have concerns. Good evening, I'm Kelda Yoon. A judge has sentenced a teenage driver to a year in an open custody youth facility after he struck and killed 2 children in Vaughan last May. The 17-year-old was speeding on a residential street when he lost control of the vehicle, killing 10-year-old Anaya Chowdhury and her 4-year-old brother Jax as they were playing in their driveway. Ali Chiasson has more on the sentence and reaction from the family.
The Chowdhury family paints the tragic picture of just how quickly life can change.
The 5 of us were in our comfort zone in our front yard of our home. We were at ease. We felt safe and unexpecting of the horror that was about to unfold in front of our eyes. We heard a speeding car and immediately saw it flying into our 2 children and neighbor. Our beautiful, almost 11-year-old daughter, Anaya, so full of passion, courage, love, and determination, died from her injuries. Our little loving, spunky, full of playfulness 4-year-old Jax also lost his life due to his injuries.
The 16-year-old driver made several excuses after the crash. The steering had locked up. There was something wrong with the brakes, he said. It would come out that there was nothing mechanically wrong with the 2017 Mercedes. The collision was caused by speed and speed alone. The teen was driving 102 kilometers an hour down that residential street.
I have to accept we're completely helpless and vulnerable to the recklessness of a stranger. I have to accept the devastation on my family, and I have to accept the laws that protect the guilty.
The now 17-year-old driver has been sentenced to 1 year in open custody, followed by 6 months of community supervision and a 6-year driving ban. No sentence could possibly ease the Chowdhury's pain.
The fact that we are triggered into our nightmare by the sounds of speeding cars has made us aware of how often cars are speeding everywhere, all the time.
Their grief now motivates their advocacy for safer streets.
My children lost their lives because of a few moments of selfish stupidity.
We have to create a culture of safer driving in our communities. We ask you as the greater community to do your part in honoring not only the lives of our children, but all those who have lost their lives to reckless driving.
This is what we lost. This is what you guys lost. This is what the world lost.
Ali Chiasson, CBC News, Toronto.
The Ford government is planning to temporarily cut Ontario's gas tax. The premier is saying he is making good on a promise from the last election, even though the tax cut won't take effect until after this year's election. Queen's Park reporter Mike Crawley has this story.
Filling up these days sure hits you in the wallet, and hard enough that when you're at the pumps today, you might not remember this election promise from nearly 4 years ago.
We're lowering the tax on gas by 10 cents a litre.
Until now, Premier Doug Ford got only partway there. Scrapping Ontario's cap-and-trade system knocked off 4.3 cents a litre. Today, with prices near a record high, plans are announced for a new cut to the gas tax, 5.7 cents.
We're fulfilling our promise at 10 cents a litre.
There are a couple of catches. It doesn't kick in until July 1st, after Election Day.
July's not soon enough.
And it's only slated to last until the end of the year.
Only for 6 months, though?
It's only for 6 months.
Come on, government.
We're going to give people a break for a minimum of 6 months. Again, putting money back into people's pockets.
The tax cut would mean on a typical fill-up of 50 liters, you'd save a little under $3.
It's a good gesture, but it might be lost ultimately on massively higher prices than last year.
And how about for people who don't own a car or who mostly get around on transit?
Drivers have gotten a break, and now transit riders need a break too.
Sheila Pisey-Allen is with TTC Riders, a transit advocacy group.
It's not fair to only give a discount to car drivers, especially because people who drive cars are more likely to have higher incomes.
Factoring in everyone with and without cars, the tax cut is expected to save the average household $65 this year. For the government, it means nearly $650 million less in revenue.
This government has had 4 years to lower the gas prices for folks and bring in this legislation. And on the eve of an election, at the 11th hour, we see the government continuing to make these election promises when they had years to deliver on this.
It is the season of election promises. All the parties are rolling some out now, and that will only heat up once the election campaign begins, exactly 1 month from today. Mike Crawley, CBC News, Toronto.
With COVID-19 cases rising again, the city is emphasizing the importance of getting a third vaccine dose. While Toronto has a high rate of people with at least 2 doses, it says more people need to get their booster. Greg Ross has more on the city's latest campaign to get people vaccinated.
The top 3 priorities in Toronto's fight against COVID-19 are vaccination, vaccination, and vaccination, in that order.
That was Mayor Tory's message from one of the city's 76 Vax and Ride clinics. These pop-up clinics are running for 2 weeks at TTC stations around the city, with an emphasis on getting people a third dose of the vaccine.
Hundreds of people have already received their third doses from Vax and Ride clinics.
This is just one of the initiatives by the city to encourage Torontonians to get a third shot. Tory says they're also working closely with doctors and pharmacies to provide convenient options for patients. They're bringing mobile clinics directly to buildings in high-risk neighborhoods, and they're calling tens of thousands of people directly with information.
If you have 3 doses of COVID-19 vaccine, your risk of severe outcomes from a COVID-19 infection is significantly reduced.
This woman says she's thankful to be triple vaxxed.
I also got COVID, and it was not great, but I think that third dose did help with my symptoms, and it wasn't as bad as I feel like it could have been.
Almost 90% of Torontonians have had 2 shots, but only 65% have had 3 shots, and a third dose might be a tough sell for some.
It was first recommended that 2 doses is fine, so if people have that, the third one should be very optional.
I'm tired of vaccines. I think that I'm capped at 2 and that's it. I did the 2 vaccines because it felt like an obligation, but after that, it's like, how many more do I need?
Pretty soon, a 4th dose may be available. Today, Ontario's Minister of Health said they're waiting for advice from the National Advisory Committee on Immunization about whether or not a 4th dose is needed and who to give it to.
That is something that we will be studying along with the Chief Medical Officer of Health to determine what Ontario's position is going to be, whether it's going to be for older adults or whether for the general population.
Toronto's Medical Officer of Health says COVID cases are on the rise, but it was to be expected with the recent lifting of restrictions and mandates. She says the pandemic isn't over and people can still use the tools that we've used over the past 2 years, like masking and distancing, to help control the spread. Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
Meteorologist Colette Kennedy joins us now with a first look at the forecast. Colette, the sun not too visible today, but temperatures at least back up to almost seasonal.
Yeah, it's finally nice to see a little bit of consistency beginning to come together anyway. We'll get there, don't worry, as we get deeper into spring. But just showing you the temperatures. When I've got it blue, it's a young month of April, I know, but blue means below average. But keeping in mind, Friday was 3 degrees. Then Saturday, we'll round it up to 6. Sunday, up to 7. And today, to 8 degrees. So at this time of year, that's closer, 8 or 9, closer to kind of our norms. So nice to see we're getting there. And even though it looks below, we're going to be kind of pushing even a bit above when we get to about Thursday. So looking ahead, though, at those showers that have been moving through southwestern Ontario, those are continuing to push towards the GTA through the overnight hours tonight. Not much to this, but still tomorrow morning a little bit wet on the roads, especially the early part of the commute, a little drizzle in there. Southwestern Ontario, some patchy fog. So do allow a little extra time tomorrow, and then we'll break some sun coming back in late afternoon. Tonight's low 3 degrees and back up to 8 degrees tomorrow when we get that clearing later in the day, Kilda.
Thanks so much, Colette. Ontario officially launched its online gaming market today, becoming the first province in Canada to legalize and tax platforms such as online casinos and esports betting sites. But as Philippe de Bottigny explained, some insiders and experts are expressing concerns.
Ontario is hoping it's going to be a huge new revenue source, regulating and taxing the $1 billion online gambling industry. This Toronto startup offers virtual casino games and sports betting, one of the few homegrown operators now licensed and allowed to advertise legally.
We have a bit of a home court advantage, we feel, so it being that market is obviously critical for us.
Big global gambling sites like Bet365 and FanDuel are also joining the party, with hundreds of online games now certified by the provincial regulator. Now that they're legit, there's concern some Ontarians may not play within their limits.
Most people have a really bad understanding of random chance, and so they think, for example, if they keep playing, they're due to win.
Researchers say all the flashy ads and easy access may draw at-risk players.
With the increase in accessibility of gambling games in this way, there should also be an increase in accessibility of responsible gambling tools and services to these players.
Beyond passive measures like including links to addiction resources on their sites, FanDuel Canada says it's being proactive.
On our app, there are a lot of tools for players to be able to self-regulate around game bets, length of time, wager limits.
Licensed online operators are being taxed by Ontario 20% of their earnings, far less than brick-and-mortar casinos at 55%.
It's not fair. We want to compete. We want iGaming. We want it to be a level playing field.
Legalizing online betting in Ontario could draw some customers away from casinos. An industry report says that could result in hundreds of millions of dollars in lost tax revenue each year for Queen's Park. Philippe de Bottigny, CBC News, Toronto.
Dozens of Toronto's affordable housing buildings are staying that way. The city's Community Housing Corporation is transferring more than 80 properties in the West End to a local not-for-profit, with the aim of ensuring the units remain affordable. Dale Manukduk has more.
Neighborhood Land Trust has taken ownership of 81 homes and small buildings in the city's West End, in neighborhoods like the Annex and Dufferin Grove.
In our partnership with the City of Toronto, we've committed to maintaining all of the affordable units at an affordable rate of 90% of average market rent and below.
Existing tenant relationships for the 153 individual units will remain the same, with no rental increases. The average rent per unit is $999. They range from rooming houses all the way up to 6-bedroom homes. The majority are 3-bedroom plus apartments. There are 20 units that are vacant but need substantial renovation.
And so to accomplish that, we're going to be investing over $21 million into improving these homes for the tenants who live there and who the tenants who would live there in perpetuity.
While the NLT will own the buildings and be responsible for repairs and improvements, YWCA Toronto will operate them and act as landlord. YWCA runs multiple shelters for women and their families fleeing violence.
And the difficulty is that people have to stay in these shelters for far too long because of the housing crisis, because there is so little affordable housing in our city.
The project will specifically provide critical housing for women and gender diverse individuals and their families. There will be a full-time tenancy support coordinator.
Making referrals, working on payment plans, figuring out what is happening, basically that's might be compromising their tenancy. That is that person's whole job.
NLT says it plans to keep the economic impact of the project in the community by hiring locally and engaging surrounding businesses. Renovations on the vacant units is scheduled to begin in July. Dale Manukduk, CBC News, Toronto.
To Ukraine now, and condemnation is deepening over the discovery of dead civilians in the war-torn country. New bans on Russian energy are being considered, and U.S. President Joe Biden again called Vladimir Putin a war criminal as Ukraine piled on more pressure for international action. And a warning, viewers may find some images here disturbing. President Volodymyr Zelensky visited Bucha, the town at the center of the story. He called the deaths war crimes and genocide. The town's mayor says with Russian troops withdrawing, 50 bodies have been found. Satellite images suggest more could be buried next to a church. Ukraine wants the International Criminal Court to collect evidence. Now, elsewhere in the war, Russia's siege of Mariupol continues. Attempts by the Red Cross to reach it today were again unsuccessful. Welcome back. Well, it was supposed to be a relaxing Caribbean getaway. Instead, it turned into an over decade-long legal battle for one private investigator trying to get compensation for an injury he suffered during a trip to St. Lucia. Angelina King has more.
Welcome to St. Lucia.
A home video from 2009 shows the beginning of a relaxing week at a Sandals resort in St. Lucia.
And down below, our own pool.
But a slip on these stairs at his suite turned Tom Klatt's life upside down and led to numerous leg surgeries.
The quad tendon was torn off.
Years later, he's still facing the prospect of even more surgeries.
Once I learned how significant the injury was, and the chances of me ever skating again, ever kicking a soccer ball, coaching my son, doing any of that, had gone out the window. I wanted to see where I'd fallen and why.
So he returned to the resort to launch his own investigation.
36.
The former police detective turned private eye documented the stairs, the inconsistent heights, shapes, and depths, and a lack of lighting.
He was an innocent person walking down a set of steps that were designed for someone to fall.
Klatt turned his findings over to lawyer Joe Falconeri, who used it to sue Sandals, and after years of legal wrangling, they won. An Ontario judge awarded Klatt nearly $800,000 in damages. But Sandals is appealing, leading to yet another round of court challenges, showing how time-consuming and challenging it can be to get accountability when things go wrong abroad.
Canadians need to know what they're up against.
Both Klatt and lawyer David Durfell say having proper insurance is key.
Take the responsibility in your own hands and make sure that you have a good amount of insurance.
Because now suing could be even trickier. While Klatt's case was winding through the courts, the Supreme Court made it more difficult to have abroad injury cases heard here in Canada.
The test has become a bit more stringent.
And if it does get heard here, there can still be pitfalls, as Klatt discovered. St. Lucian law applied here because the incident happened there. It states all plaintiffs are 25% liable for their own injury. That meant Klatt's award was rolled back by about $250,000. A warning, he says, to all travelers.
If you do get injured, there may be a big fight on your hands, as there was with me.
Sandals declined to comment because the case is still before the courts. Angelina King, CBC News, Toronto.
And you're looking at a live shot of the Toronto skyline. We did manage to stay mostly dry this evening, but showers are beginning and will continue overnight. Currently, it is 3 degrees in the city. Let's go back to Colette now with a look at your full forecast. And Colette, it will be a bit of a wet commute tomorrow morning.
Yeah, that's what we're looking at. So probably allowing a bit of extra time, even though there's not much rainfall that's going to be coming through. I'll show you exactly how much here in just a moment. It's still enough. As soon as we get the wet roadways, it just kind of slows things down. That's how it goes. So that's tonight into early tomorrow. And we'll see a chance for showers or some periods of rain even coming in off and on through the week. Now, I'm glad you're tuning in here, because if you just look at your app on your phone, you're going to see rain icons all week long and think it's going to be the worst, rainy, wet week ever. And it's not going to be that way. I'll kind of keep you posted and walk you through where there, we will need those umbrellas. Less herky-jerky with the temps. And what I mean is they're a little more consistent. We have a bit of a spike on Thursday, but otherwise kind of closer to seasonal and not so much of an up and down in all those extremes. Daytime highs today, 8 degrees for Toronto, Kitchener at 6, and with that system moving in a little cooler there for Windsor. There are those rain showers coming in after midnight, pushing through the GTA into early tomorrow morning, tapering off to some drizzle. The cloud deck's still there and some fog. Some areas it'll be a little bit dense there into southwestern Ontario. Then tomorrow, later in the day, so this is 4, even before that, we'll start to see the clouds eroding a little bit and get into some clearing around the GTA, the Golden Horseshoe. And earlier than that, you'll see it in southwestern Ontario, but then you'll have a thin layer coming in of some higher clouds. That's ahead of the next system. So we get a bit of a break in there, all right, for later tomorrow and then into Wednesday. Dry in the morning, but clouds will be moving in, and we'll see those showers developing more towards the afternoon for southwestern Ontario, and then later on Wednesday coming in with some periods of rain overnight. So early part of the day dry for Toronto there, just with the cloud cover on Wednesday. This is not Wednesday. This is just a look at what's coming through tonight. What's left to go through, very little, most cases less than 5 millimeters of rain. Temperatures tonight a little cooler because you will get into some of that clearing, Windsor and Leamington, and where you're going to hold on to the precipitation. Things will stay a bit warmer. Temperatures all around the Golden Horseshoe, and there we go, very close to seasonal. In fact, how about we get there on Wednesday and then Kelda, that warm up coming, double digits for Thursday.
I like the sound of that. Thanks so much, Colette. Finally tonight, a big company is thinking small when it comes to the environment by developing green toys for children.
It's fantastic for Mega Bloks to have this opportunity to really sort of introduce children to these sustainable behaviors and sustainable ways of living at a very young age, so that they grow up learning and knowing about these things.
Aimed at preschoolers, the new line of toys includes a solar farm, wind turbines, recycling trucks, and beehives. It's Mattel's first big line of toys made from certified carbon-neutral material. That comes in part from the purchase of 500 metric tons of CO2 offsets from a forest conservation project right here in Canada. And that is our show for you tonight. Thank you so much for watching. Dwight Drummond has your next local newscast tomorrow at 6. I will see you back here tomorrow night at 11. Have a great night, everyone.